So this is part 2 of our 6-part self-love series. This is how to love your own body. And today is Thursday, the 15th of April, 2021. It's been a lovely day. We've put some nice quotes in there because a few nice inspirational quotes are always nice. Love yourself unconditionally, just as you love those closest to you despite their faults. And that's by Les Brown. Magnificent speaker. Positive and negative self-talk. When we don't love or even like our own bodies, it can be very common for us to put ourselves down. And we can get into the habit of doing this without even realizing the negative effects it is having on our self-worth and our self-image. Imagine how it would feel if someone else was as horrible to us as we are to ourselves sometimes. Sometimes we can be really, really nasty to ourselves. We can be our worst Judas, our worst critic. But if someone else was being like that, it would not be nice. We wouldn't accept it. And it's not nice to think about. It's not a nice experience to think about in that way. We should treat ourselves and talk to ourselves in the same way that we should want to be treated by others. Supportive, caring, and loving. It's like the golden rule is to treat your neighbor as if you would want to be treated, but we should also treat ourselves as if how we would want to be treated by others. Even if we don't believe it at first, we should start saying nice things to ourselves, otherwise known as affirmations. A great practice is to look at yourself in the mirror and just say nice things to yourself. I love you. You are worthy. You are beautiful. You are powerful. Or write these down in journals. It's also great to practice denial and affirmation, which is similar to CBT. And when a negative thought arises, you deny it and affirm it with the positive counterpart. So maybe you wake up in the morning, you look at the mirror and you think, oh, I really hate my nose. And then you say, no, like, that is not a helpful thought. So you deny it. You clear that out of your mind and you affirm it with a positive one. You say, I love my nose. I love everything about myself. I'm accepting it as possible for me to be completely in love with every aspect of my body. And as we saw in the video earlier about the water, I just want to elaborate on how our thoughts and words affect our body. Our body is majority made up of water. So here they've taped different intentions to water and then photographed it under electron microscope, I believe. And you can see the different geometric and chaotic patterns that have been created there. It's really powerful to just contemplate that and what that can do to you if you say certain negative or positive things to yourself. Realizing our uniqueness. Self-love can be hard for a lot of us because we don't, or maybe have never actually really loved the body that we live in. This could be partly to do with social conditioning, that we all need to be perfect or we're worthless, which, as we said earlier, is changing all the time anyway, the social perfection. Or it could be to do with a traumatic experience that we've never really overcome. When we change our perception of these things and truly accept ourselves for our uniqueness, we'll be able to see the inherent value we hold in our mind and bodies. Changing our perceptions, our philosophies of how we see the world and our place in it can be a long process, but it will bring us lasting peace of mind, no matter where we are in life or what is going on around us. This is the biggest thing of of being able to change how you perceive yourself in the world, and not having to compare yourself to other people at all the time. It's one of the most solid things that we can do, that will, no matter what's going on in your life at that time, it will be there in your mind, of a way of life, a way of looking at the world, which will give you a huge amount of peace of mind. And the way I found to do this is by watching, listening, reading, learning positive and inspirational material that lifts you up, inspires you, and makes you question the beliefs you're holding, so you can replace those beliefs with more positive beliefs that serve you and make you feel like you're worthy and that you love yourself. And attend events like this and get around people that see the greatness in you. Often we feel like we don't love ourselves because we get put down by others, or we have our power taken from us. So we don't feel worthy of love, and we don't feel like we're making the cut. And I think sadly, people can reason with this and tell themselves that there's always going to be mean people and horrible people in the world. And so we need to be able to learn to love ourselves despite of all that. But despite people putting you down all the time, we should still love ourselves, which is partly true. There is going to be mean people out there in the world. But if we're in environments that repeatedly make us feel like we aren't good enough and that we dislike or even hate ourselves, we need to have the courage to be able to walk away from those people in those situations. From time to time, we're always going to bump into horrible people. But if we're in those situations all the time, we need to be able to remove ourselves from those situations. We should go where we are valued most. If we're in a job or relationship or living situation where we're being put down and not valued, we are hurting ourselves by staying in that environment. We all have a huge amount of inherent value dormant within us and need to be in environments where that is allowed to grow and develop to its full potential. We should be in a relationship that allows us to grow, to see the best in us and let those ideas and those potentialities flow and develop. And you should be in a job where you feel like you are bringing the best of yourselves out and not being put down for trying to do your best. If we feel like we aren't being valued in a situation, we need to have the courage to bring that up to those people, that person, with the threat. I'm not sure if threat was the great word there, but it's what came up, with the threat of moving to a better place. And if that person or those people aren't willing to meet our needs as a valuable person in that situation, then we can't stay there. We need to have the courage to move on and find something better, because it will drain the life from us. If we are being put down and we can't develop and we can't express ourselves fully and be our true selves, and we're not being valued for expressing ourselves in our true way and loving everything about ourselves, then it will drain the life from us. Treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping. And that might be a weird thing to say, but I think a lot of the time it's people we can give a lot of advice and say, if we're looking at something from a third person's perspective and from the outside, and say, oh, you should do this. You need to take your vitamins, you need to take your antibiotics, or you need to be doing this every single day. It's easy for us to say that for other people and even do those things for those people, but quite often it's not as easy for us to do that for ourselves. So I think it's important to try and do this. content but not complacent. Love is not only a feeling, but also an act. Love must be acted out. In a relationship, you must show love, you must do acts of love. Compassion is an act. If we were all just to love everyone and have compassion for everyone, but never act out those things, then would that be love? Would that be compassion? We should all feel amazing in our own skin, no matter what size or shape we are. And loving ourselves exactly as we are is a fundamental part of improving our self-love and body image. But there's also a difference between loving the self for the way you are and acting out love for yourself. We should show ourselves love by learning our body's needs and how to look after it properly. And this is something that Mia touched on a minute ago. Well, she probably touched on all of this actually. And that once we realize how amazing our bodies are, we will start to honor that and look after ourselves in the best way we can. And this is why it's important to learn how our bodies operate and what they need to function properly with longevity, for us to fully understand how to look after and care for our bodies in the most loving way possible. Through loving ourselves the way we are, we will also naturally start to carry out acts of love to ourselves. We will want to look after our own bodies. But the more we actively act out this love, the better our results will be. The more good we'll feel about ourselves. More good. And this is where Zach's going to take over there. Hopefully I covered all that well enough.
Oh, it was good. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's one of these things again. It's like every week we come to this part, and it's like we've got this massive topic that we're condensing down into 20 minutes, and it's interesting how it plays out. But right now, I'm gonna walk us through or explain this this group exercise, and then we're going to practice it for those who wish to participate. And so yeah, the most powerful way to love yourself, so a little bit about myself. I've been learning, as we all learn, I've been learning for a long time, as we all have. And one thing that I've really learned that's been really powerful for me recently, in the past few years, in my own personal development, in my own shadow work, inner healing work, emotional healing, specifically mental health as well in that way. And it's all coming down to this idea of love energy cultivation. The whole idea is we're so good at focusing on our lack, right? We're so good at focusing on the heavy emotions that we carry around with us that we don't always necessarily feel at that point in time. And then years later, they're still stuck in our body somewhere, just unprocessed. And it's like, Mia, you're doing your shadow work this week. And this is a great example of using, so what I'm about to show is just one way of using love energy to be able to really move that lack out of us, to really melt it into neutrality, and ultimately to bias it towards love. So we're feeling more loving within ourselves, about ourselves and about our lives than we do in lack. Okay, so we're taking our baseline from feeling in lack and shifting into love. Now, I haven't really gone into it at all. If we go to the next slide, if you could please, Chris. I haven't gone into it in incredible depth in this particular point. Really, the only part about the actual love energy cultivation is in that fourth paragraph there on the bottom right hand corner. And there is, if to anyone here who's really serious about leveling up how they feel in their body image, their entire being, essentially, you can do this through bringing in love energy into yourself. And I just suggest maybe going back over the YouTube channel, Be the Change Collective YouTube channel, and looking at the emotional healing videos we've done the past few months. And some good information in there. But yeah, so what I'm running through here is basically, it's like when Chris and I were like putting this presentation together earlier on, I really became clear to me through my own experiences that this is like the the meat of it, essentially, the visualization, creating a feeling vibration, and then using affirmation. And that combination of those three things in unison can, when practiced consistently, because it's not just like a one-hit wonder that you do once and then it just sticks with you. Like, that does happen, but in this case, it's not. This is one of those things where, especially with the visualization, it needs to be practiced consistently in order for it to really drill into the subconscious, emotional level, change the belief systems, and then it's drilled in. So the objective here is just to so first of all, that's I'm just trying to get clear on how to present this, how to say exactly what it is, because
I think that's great. I think you've done a great job. If you go through this slide, it should
sure.
be
Thank you.
great.
Okay, so the objective is to just get familiar with how the version of you who loves themselves fully feels, because that version of you exists right now in this now moment. You may not feel that way about yourself right now, but there is a version of you that you can tap into that loves themselves unconditionally and is completely overjoyed in every way and in every sense of their life and in themselves. So that's the first part of this. We're going to get familiar with that, and then we're then able, when we get familiar and we remember what that feeling was, because when we're having these visualization thoughts, we're going to be feeling something. We're going to have some kind of emotional reaction. So we just want to remember that emotional, vibrational frequency, that feeling that we're feeling, just so that we can tap into it and choose to feel that way every time we practice this visualization. Okay. So yeah, we're going to be, and then by doing this, we get closer and closer to fully embodying a more loving self-image, because we're reprogramming our mind and emotions. Like, it's using the law of attraction to essentially, that's that loving version of ourselves that we want to be feeling in. And here we are right now at a kind of baseline or more biased towards lack. And we just want to raise ourselves up to that other version of ourselves and meet in the middle, so that they're both, so we exist as that. And so the method, this is the method that I'll use for this group exercise that we'll start in a moment. We'll enter a light meditative state, and in the cinema screen of our mind, so our mind's eye in our brain, we're going to visualize ourselves completely and utterly in love with ourselves and our bodies. And we can just take notice of any kind of characteristics or attributes that we may see in our mind's eye when we're having this visualization. You can either do it in the first person or the third person, or even a combination of both, whichever one works best for you. And yeah, we're just going to really remember the feeling. So really get familiar with the feeling when you're going through this visualization. Now, of course, as I was saying about like consistency, practicing it and compounding it and getting a lot of momentum behind it for it to actually be effective. Like, it's not a one-hit wonder. It is something that actually takes dedicated consistency. But the good thing about it as well is, like, it's like with most things in life, it kind of goes in a Fibonacci spiral. Like, at first it starts slowly and you have to put in a lot of effort in order to get some traction, and then all of a sudden it will tend to like skyrocket, and then you'll be able to, and this is how this will work. It's the same with the love energy. It's like we can bring ourselves up, and then when we're up, we can maintain that much easier. Okay, so yeah, by repeating this process, ideally once a day, we will naturally start to become that version of us we see in our visualizations through the law of attraction. Who here has heard of the law of attraction? I know half of you have your videos off right now, but Alison and of course Mia, and I'm sure many of you have as well. And hey Rak, by the way, and Abdo as well. So yeah, we can compound the amount of love we feel for ourselves by affirming, I love you. So I put up a Facebook post earlier on, actually, because it was yesterday. I was lying down in bed, and I had something come up for me, a past relationship, and just felt this kind of sadness. Decided to lay down on my bed and just place both my hands on my heart, and using the I love you affirmation, just the 3 words, I love you. And I said it slowly this time. And for some reason, saying it slowly, there was this real intense, much more intense reverberation of energy around my chest space, around my heart space. And what I felt was with my hands on my chest, there was this kind of like mist of like this gas of love that kind of like went through my hands, through my heart, and past my heart, and kind of like a gas. You know how like a gas will like hit like a mirror or a solid surface and then just kind of like permeate out in all directions. That's kind of what the love energy did. It just did that on my spine and just kind of like fluttered out. It was a beautiful feeling, and so that's part of the I love you affirmation process. And as I said, please feel free to check out on the YouTube channel previous presentations, because it's very much covered in depth there. And yeah, it's just combining the I love you affirmation can just have a really good positive effect towards your body, you're loving yourself, you're loving your self-image, loving your body, all combined. So visualization and affirmation combined, very, very powerful. And of course, focusing on how you want to feel. It's probably the most important thing. You have the power to choose how much you wish to love yourself. You have the power to choose how your body is and how you feel in your body. Okay, so before I go on to that, has anyone got any questions? We don't usually do questions during the presentation, but just because time ticks on as it is. But just for now, I would like to ask, has anyone got a question, please? No. Okay, right. So now what I'd like us to do, for those who wish to participate in this, just to kind of, it's not like a deep meditation, we just want to go into like a basic kind of light meditative state. And I'm gonna walk us through this. One moment, the dog's scratching at the door and nobody needs that while they're doing meditation. So I'd just like to invite you, please, to close your eyes and just take 3 deep breaths in and out. Now, there exists that version of you. It doesn't matter if you've never come across this version of yourself before, if you've never tapped into this version of yourself before, that's fine if you have or have not. But I'd like you now, just in your mind's eye, just to be able to take a moment and see yourself in the third person as someone who is fully in love with themselves and their body. What kind of characteristics do they have? Perhaps they're smiling at you. How does viewing this person, this aspect of you, and whatever they're doing, how does this view of yourself make you feel? Or more, shall I say, how does that version of yourself feel? And can you tap into that feeling within yourself now? Just want you to really revel in that feeling and in that moment with that version of yourself, get to know them a little bit, familiarize yourself with them, talk to them. Now, if upon focusing on them now, the one thing I'd like you to take away from this moment that you just had with this version of yourself is, how did they feel and how did you feel? If it was something positive, if it was something empowering, something loving, something encouraging, something that felt good, then I suggest that you take that and you run with that and you use that every single day or as often as you can. It doesn't have to be every single day, but just spending some time in meditation, very simply, as with most things are simple, but spending a little bit of time in meditation as often as you can and going into this visualization of that version of yourself and feeling, because really it's through your offering of a feeling, your offering of an emotional state, your offering of a vibration, your offering of a thought that is going to get you closer to that very feeling that you're offering, to embodying that very feeling that you're offering. Okay. And I'm not going to make it any more complicated than it needs to be. So there we go. Thank you so much. That is all. Okay, if everyone would like to come back into the room, please. And thank you very much for doing this for yourself, improving your own life, making yourself feel better and those around you ultimately. So just one more point I would like to make in summary of that little presentation that I just took us through there was, if you want to understand more about how if you want to understand more about how the topic of self-love and body images relate to the law of attraction, then I recommend learning from Abraham Hicks. Real name is actually Esther Hicks, but it's a long story. If you'd like to look up Abraham Hicks, there's a lot to be learned there in regards to the law of attraction. And the next slide, please. And yeah, back to you, Chris. Unless I'm happy to carry on if.
Yeah, carry on if you like.
All right. So we have a lovely quote here from Lucille Ball. I presume it's Lucille. Love yourself first, and everything else falls into line. You really have nothing. Oh. Love yourself first, and everything else falls into line. You really have to love yourself to get anything done in this world. Feel free to wrap it up, Chris.
All right, no worries. So in summary, we went over positive and negative self-talk. I did want to make a point about that. When you're saying those positive affirmations, at first you might not believe them, but the more you say them, the more those ideas and those thoughts are influencing the subconscious mind. And the more you impress those ideas into your subconscious mind, the more you will start to change your perception of yourself, and you'll start to change the way you think and the way you feel. So you will, by saying that and impressing those ideas into your subconscious mind, will start believing them after a certain amount of time. So it's really, really powerful to do that. And let's just stop being mean to ourselves and other people. Let's just be nice, And we talked about Dr. Emoto's the water and what those intentions, how they created those beautiful geometric patterns. So how our words and thoughts can either turn water in our bodies into a distorted mess on the atomic level,
Is
which
it
harms
atomic?
us.
Not necessarily, but yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, or pristine, radiant, glowing geometry that is conducive of optimal health on all bodily levels. Realizing uniqueness is why loving ourselves for our uniqueness is a great way of being, and being able to shift our perception over to really seeing ourselves as unique and not having to compare ourselves to anyone else. And why sometimes loving ourselves involves creating boundaries in our relationships as well as changing our environment, and jobs and living conditions. Um, Even though loving ourselves exactly as we are is a fundamental part of improving our self-love and bodily image, the most improvement also comes when we offer acts of love to our bodies in addition. And lastly, but not least, was that great visualization method there. Um, Short meditation. I mean, I don't know how long that took, 5 minutes, if that. Which I saw myself as the third person, and then I saw myself as that person looking in the mirror, and then just looking at my body and just thinking, wow, I just love this body. This is great. Like, oh, there might not be some things I don't like about it, but it's my body and I really love it. It's so unique. So it was amazing. Thank you for doing that for us. And that was everything. But guys, if there's just been one idea here that you could take away, it just made it all worth it for us. So if you can just take an idea and run with it and it just makes a difference, then that's amazing. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't been to an event yet, please probably check the description below and there'll be a link to one of our meetup groups. Thank you.